Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order for May the 15th, our Council Budget Committee meeting order 2.0. We have minutes, and like a motion, if everybody's had a chance to review the minutes, they looked fine to me. If I could get, yes, Councillor Chapman, motions to approve the minutes. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We're on the consent agenda. 3.1, we have the first quarter cash and investment report. I'm not sure who's making it. I think Shannon was going to make that. Am I wrong, Lucy? Oh, sorry, I'm working at consent agenda. I apologize. Is there anybody who would like to see that moved onto the regular agenda? And I'm asking council if they wouldn't mind. We are a public meeting right now, so we have a big agenda later on tonight. These are also on, obviously, our council agenda, so I'm asking you if you're going to ask questions related to this, any of these three, that we don't repeat ourselves and ask the same questions as we move into the council meeting. So if there's anybody who'd like to see those off of the agenda.
I will in the council meeting. Not here.
Okay, there being none, can I have a motion to receive the consent agenda, please? Councillor Hunter. All those in favor? It's Darrell, unanimous. Thank you. Item 4, agenda reports. We have 4.1, that is the capital budget amendment list. And I know, Adam, you were coming up, or Lauren, welcome. Really enjoyed seeing all those under budget and on time statements throughout the information. Thank you. Whenever you're ready, gentlemen.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Budget Committee, I just wanted to, I guess, foreshadow Adam's presentation. Part of that is to take Council Budget Committee back to our capital budget deliberations into October and November of last year. And there were two of the projects that Adam is bringing forward today for capital budget amendments that were actually discussed previously. One of those was the Luckstone pedestrian underpass. And we had, at the time, indicated to Council Budget Committee that there had been some changes in approach from CP Rail, and that we certainly seen this was a project that was very integral to pedestrian safety in the vicinity of Nose Creek Park and the CP tracks. And if we could confirm the design arrangements with CP, we would return back in 2017, and that's certainly what we're doing this evening. The other project that we pulled off the plate administratively was the 24th Street. Last year there was a construction proposal, and I think I'd indicated to Council Budget Committee that internally we didn't feel there was sufficient development activity at the time to warrant the extension of 24th Street. But since that time we have had a good level of confirmation from both Brookfield and Melcor that, in our opinion, it makes sense to proceed at least with the detailed design work this year. And in any event, I did want to just note that both of those projects were discussed previously at Council Budget Committee, but we're pleased tonight to bring them before you for further consideration in moving forward to this capital budget year. And with that, I'll turn it over to Adam.
Thank you very much to the chairman and members of the board. Three projects I'm going to bring forward tonight. 24th Street design, Luckstone pedestrian tunnel, and the Sierra Springs Drive project. First of all, I'll start with the 24th Street design. This project was brought forth and with the plans of designing 1,200 meters of 24th Street. It was brought forward in the functional plan that was completed in 2015, Southwest Arterial Functional Study, as a road that required four-lane divided roadway, and we were planning to do that work over a period of 2018, 19, and 20. As Director Stevens just mentioned, that there is some developer interest in having that work brought forward sooner. And so the request right now is to have designed the first 1,200 meters from 24th Street south of Yankee Valley Boulevard, with the intent hopefully to build the first 400 meter section in 2018. So is there any questions on this one?
Any questions from the committee? Nope. Please continue, Adam.
Thank you, sir. Second project I'll bring forward is the Luckstone pedestrian crossing, which happens to be adjacent in between the museum and Nose Creek Park right now. So that project is, again, as Director Stevens has mentioned, we have been in discussions with CP for quite a length of time, actually, to ensure safe pedestrian crossing there. As it stands right now, there are people that are trespassing, and safety is an issue. They're crossing at grade over top of the tracks. And CP's best interest and the city's best interest to protect pedestrians, and that we thought the way to do this was a pedestrian tunnel underneath the tracks. We did propose a at-grade crossing, which CP said no to, that the at-grade crossing was not accessible or was not an option at this time, and that option B, as presented by the consulting engineer, was a pedestrian tunnel underneath the tracks itself. So that is project number 2, with the consideration planning to construct this project in 2017. However, we do know that the constraints with CP Rail and timely interactions with them, we may be limited to the work we get done this year, because we do know that we cannot affect their operations on a day-to-day basis. Any questions on that one?
Any questions as it relates to the tunnel? Yes, Councillor Coulson.
There was no way that we could work with the existing tunnel and just make it bigger for cost savings?
Through the chair, the existing, the 3 tunnels that are in place currently, their primary purpose is to allow for a drainage outlet for West Airdrie. We believe that what we have there right now for pedestrian access, it strikes the balance between the maximum pedestrian connectivity through that corridor without impacting the conveyance of large storm events and flow-through stormwater for that. So simply to knock out, if we just knocked out and oversized one of those existing culverts, essentially it's still in a flood conveyance corridor. And what is being proposed here, this will be a standalone pedestrian tunnel separate from a flood conveyance function that currently exists today. And so we believe it's the best approach, and I think our engineering consultant as well has looking at all the factors, is recommending that for those reasons as well.
Okay, just thought I'd try one more time. Thanks.
All right, Adam. So, we gave, I forget how long ago, you brought those 3 or 4 options that we had. Bob brought them forward probably two and a half years ago. Is that correct? Because there was other options. I know there was a $2 million+ option, and the at grade doesn't make any sense, especially with trains are doing 45 miles an hour, depending on which ones go through there. So, what's the Federal Railway Safety Improvement Fund? What do you anticipate that dollar to come in at?
Through the chair, thank you. That information, there's an application that we apply for to a maximum of 80% of reimbursement for the cost of design and construction. That
perfect. Okay, and nothing from the CPR, correct? They're not contributing anything toward this?
That is still an ongoing conversation. They are reviewing the design as it sits right now, the options that we have. Those conversations are still ongoing with Mr. Neal and the contact we have at CP. Nothing set in stone yet, though.
Okay, so I can send a letter from the mayor's office on behalf of council requesting some financial support to go toward this.
That would be phenomenal.
Excellent. Okay, thank you so much.
Your worship?
Yes, please, Councillor.
I was sort of add on to the chair's question there. They're saying it's not, what's the word here? However, the city would have to front end until the rail improvement is certain. Is there any idea when that might be, that we'll know whether we can get that funding or not?
Through the chair, thank you. That information, the application where we submit for reimbursement will happen after construction is complete.
But it's pretty much certain that we could get the funding from them for it.
I'm not going to, through the chair again, thank you. I'm not going to say anything is certain. There's a maximum of 80% recapturing of the cost. But again, we cannot submit that until construction is complete.
Okay, thank you.
And just to close out the conversation, if there are no more comments, just this was a significant safety issue for residents. It came forward, I'm going back to when I first got elected, That ice is over. It was never intended to be a walk-through or a drive-through on bicycles or skateboards or whatever else. That this is an investment I believe that we absolutely have to make. Next one, Adam, please.
Through the chair, thank you, sir. The last project I'd like to bring to the table is the Sierra Springs Drive intersection enhancement project. Excuse me. This is the letter that yourself, sir, received from the Minister of Transportation regarding the availability to install a left turn bay from northbound Sierra Springs Drive onto westbound Yankee Valley Boulevard. With this work itself, it would include work running east-west as you vehicles exit the highway and direction of west underneath the bridge. There would be some lane configuration work done there as well. There's a traffic signal upgrades to the timing and lights, as well as some very minimal concrete work then to be done on that project as well. So this is the third project, and we actually already have our consultant is already working on this project. Again, just based on the information, the letter that you received, sir, from the Minister of Transportation. So,
Excellent, thank you. Any questions from Council Budget Committee? Yes, Deputy Mayor Burley.
Thank you, Your Worship. What's our estimated timelines on the Sierra Springs Drive completion?
Through the chair, thank you, sir. That information is unknown at this time. The project is with Alberta Transportation for review. The design is complete. It's with them for review. While they are reviewing it, we are getting the project ready for tender. Until we have a tender response, we cannot tell you when, I unfortunately can't tell you when it will be done. While it's with AT, though, we're kind of doing a parallel schedule to kind of fast track this. Very possibly AT could come back with some recommendations, which one would adjust the tender and the design itself. Okay. But again, it is a very small construction process. It's more to do with signals, timing, line painting. So the goal, in my mind right now, is to have this done before the end of August. I think absolutely can be done.
Sounds
excellent.
Great. Thank you.
Lauren, did you want to comment or?
Through the chair, until Adam uttered a month this year, I was going to jump in and certainly say there's some dependencies, obviously, as Adam has outlined. But yeah, we're certainly targeting and trying to line up our process for an August, September completion. I was pleased and shared that with engineering that we have already submitted, within approximately 3 weeks of the letter coming forward from the minister's office allowing this. We'd already submitted the detailed design to Alberta Transportation for their review. So certainly we're being quite ambitious and doing everything we can do within our power to advance this work.
That's great. Thank you very much. Any other questions for Adam or Lauren? Okay, there being none, can I get a motion, please?
I'll make that motion, Your Worship, to
Thank
accept
you.
for information.
Excellent. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Burley.
Oh, sorry.
You need to make a motion,
To
formal
accept
one,
the
please.
budget, to accept, let me pull this back up, Your Worship, sorry about that.
Recommends.
Recommend to Council that, Council recommends to Council that the 2017 capital budget be amended to include the following projects: the 24th Street design, the Luckstone CP Rail pedestrian tunnel, and the Sierra Springs Drive northbound left turn lane, with the funding applied there.
Excellent. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen. And we are on 4.2, and that's the surplus follow-up on CBC. I'm not sure. Lucy, please, whenever you're ready.
So good evening, Mayor Brown and members of the committee. So staff has prepared a report as related to a request that was made at the March 20th meeting and the potential use of the 2016 operating budget surplus. That operating budget surplus was $2.8 million. The 2017 budget, as I'm sure we all recall, was quite a static budget. As council and administration, we worked hard to try to keep the increases to a minimal. And as such, there was a number of projects, et cetera, that were deferred. So I did in the report just make listed out the items that were deferred or removed from the administrative proposed budget. As well, I also detailed the couple of items that as CBC went through the deliberations, a couple items that were moved off as well. We laid out a few options in the report pretty well. We've categorized these items in 3 areas. One being for non-unionized staff that was deferred, and that included the potential for a COLA and also the necessary funding that was laid out for implementing a compensation model or a new compensation model. The second one dealt with the snow and ice reserve, and the third one related to a number of studies. There's 3 alternatives in the report. Firstly, the committee may wish to just accept this report for information, and of course those surplus dollars have been flowed to our reserves, and they'll certainly help with managing the needs of the city to the future. Secondly, the committee may wish to recommend that the COLA increase be applied, and I did lay out a number of options of effective dates there for consideration. And as staff, we also talked about the study that was deferred for the Town and Country Center, and that may be an area that the committee may want to recommend that we actually do move forward with that in 2017. And as well, there may be other areas that the councillors and the committee may want staff to consider actually adjusting the 2017 budget. So I'll leave it at that, and we will look to CBC for direction on this item. I'm happy to answer any questions or give any other level of detail.
Thank you, Lizzie. Councillor Coulson, please.
Thank you, through the chair. The park sports field management study, was that something that senior management had taken off? Because I don't remember seeing that. Yeah?
Yeah, through the chair, that was an item that we had deferred out of the administrative proposed. It was items that was related to Great Places Master Plan.
Okay.
And was one that we, go ahead.
Just
Sorry.
for clarification, would that management study what would it have done? Was the purpose to see if we were booking our facilities properly, or what was that for?
Oh, sorry, through the chair, since we have Director Stevens in the audience, maybe he'd be able to provide, or Archie, a greater level of information than I could possibly. So that's.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Through the chair, yes, to answer your question, the sports field management study was what you mentioned. It was about, it's about the rates, it's about the usage of the fields that we have currently, and maximizing that usage. It's about scheduling and booking, and it would also be, it would make recommendations for future development of sports fields within the city.
Go ahead, follow up.
I just think that's a pretty important one. I mean, we had the money in the budget for it. I'm hearing nothing but complaints about bookings and our field usage and that kind of thing from all of our sports groups. I guess when I saw that, I thought, oh, would that make it easier, and would that help us moving forward with potentially another recreation facility coming online and some other big chunks of land that are going to start to get developed. But I'd be curious to hear what the rest of council has to say about that, if they hear the same thing that I do.
Comments from the rest of council around, we're specific to the park sports field management study, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Who wants to start? Councillor Chapman.
I haven't heard anything this year, but in previous years I did hear from the Football Society when I used to, one of the gentlemen used to work with us, and it was always an issue with them trying to get just what they had to go through to get field time. So,
okay, yes, Councillor Hunter.
So I've heard quite frequently from a lot of the ball teams, especially Chinookwan's unused times, things that, so not sure why they can't book it when they want it and those things, and I'm not 100% sure as to why. What I'm hearing is that we've asked for certain times and we're told that it's not available, but then when we go to that particular location, there's nobody there and nothing's happening. So I'm assuming that this will help you tighten up and sort of better tracking and all those things of all the sports fields. And
Archie, if you could just comment, so we've heard from a number of people that, so you and I book it, we don't show up, and then the person who wanted it, we decline them because you and I booked it, and there is no penalty or anything for me and you not booking the field, and I think that's kind of where Councillor Hunter's coming from. I've heard that as well. Whenever you're ready, sir.
Yes, Absolutely. Through the chair, we do indeed get those type of complaints. We don't have any control over whether somebody uses the field. We can only book it with best intentions that they would. If they cancel it for whatever reason beyond our knowledge, we really have no control over that. However, having a sports field management study done will hopefully give us the devices to be able to tighten that up a little bit, and possibly some recommendations on staffing so that after hours we may be able to police it to some degree.
So,
Sorry, follow up.
so through the chair, then, so do we not, so we have a schedule of booked events or teams or whatever, so nobody calls, say, the day before, or it does anything to say, you've got Tuesday at 9 o'clock booked, is that still on, is that still a go, or maybe sending an email if verification, any of those none of those kind of things are in place now, aren't you?
Through the chair, that's correct. We have no verification process in place at this point in time.
Okay, and I'm, through the chair, I'm assuming that the field management study would likely recommend that we do have some type of verification in place, or, you know, again, hate to see fields sitting empty if there's a team that could be using it and for whatever reason they're not.
Through the chair, yes, that would certainly be our hope that, as I'd stated, that we would have some recommendations from a report and study like that to help us tighten up the booking process.
Perfect, thank you.
Councillor Coulson.
Just a question. Was this, was it something that had been deferred for a couple of years, or was this a new thing that had just come up for the 2017 budget year?
Through the chair, yeah, this is a new add on the budget for 2017 as a result of the Great Places plan that was done previous to that.
So if this is not completed this year or doesn't come forward again, will it for sure be on the budget for next year? Is this something that needs to be done, and it was sort of like we can defer for a year, but it will come back?
Through the chair, absolutely. The sports field management study as well as the cemetery management study are two priorities in the Great Places plan, and they're both two things that absolutely need to be done sooner than later.
Okay. I guess then I would just say that I'm okay with leaving it off, knowing that it's going to be coming back. I mean, we're already in June, so it's getting a little bit late in the year for that, but thank you for answering those questions. And then if I could, Your Worship, one more question through the chair was the Town and Country Center feasibility study. What was that?
Just briefly, what I can tell you for that feasibility study, my understanding was it was for beginning work and looking at that facility and understanding its current state. And then I do believe it was also to start to begin to delve into looking at what potentially it can be used for.
I see.
If there's further information that's needed, I do believe Michelle Locke is in the audience and she could provide.
I was just surprised at the number.
The dollar value?
Yeah, the dollar value of that. When we had done some of that already, we saw those reports of what it was being used for, and yeah, but I'm good. Thank you.
Sorry, through the chair, I'm not recalling any recent studies that were done on that particular, unless it was just very...
It wasn't a study, it was just the numbers they were capturing currently.
I think it was when we were taking over the TNC. That's what you're referencing.
Yeah,
Going
we
back
just had something not that long ago, actually.
Yeah, I don't remember the specifics
rates,
of
it came
it.
back and it said that like 80% was private rentals.
Who was booking it? All those
Yeah.
details, I think, when we took over, were there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry. Oh, and just through the chair, just to be clear about that particular study, it had to do with the whole building. So not
Yep.
specifically
see,
the Town and
okay.
Country Center, the rental hall.
Okay.
It is about the whole building.
Yep,
Okay,
Okay.
for sure.
that
And
makes
just-
more sense to me.
Sorry, Sharon, did we not discuss because we had a letter from a resident around, wanted to booking baseball time specifically not too long ago. I thought there was a motion from council on at least looking into how we could try and mitigate that going forward. Is that not correct?
Yes, Your Worship, that is correct, and I believe it is on the follow-up.
Okay. That would be great. Lucy, I would just have a question. So option number 2, some pretty specific wording in there. It said, this is around the staff compensation employee group would mitigate pressures on future budgets. So options including putting COLA estimated, recommending not to move forward, implementation. That might not be the one I highlighted, sorry. This is the one I highlighted. So you're using words like advance critical work, mitigate future personal cost pressures, but we're not making that recommendation to change what we did. So I guess my question is, so those are 2 big words. What do you guys anticipate, what does administration anticipate as far as the future personal cost pressures? Because obviously we're going to be putting them out onto the next budget cycle or future budget cycles. And the advancing of critical work around the T&C. So should we not be looking at it based on the way I'm reading that? Sorry, as a consideration anyway, above what you've recommended.
Yeah, no, through the chair, if I could just give a little bit of background as we discuss these options or as staff. A few things we need to be considering, and as Councillor Coulson mentioned as well, we are almost halfway through the year, and as you go through your planning process for 2017, that does set our work plans as well. So sometimes with adding something in at this point in time in the year becomes a little bit difficult for staff to then reshuffle schedules and then actually throw in another study, for example. I guess that's also where we were going when we thought about the new compensation model. We do believe that it's very important to be rolling out that model. We've been at that for a couple of years, and absolutely at some point in the future, or in our future budgets, those costs will hit us. But we do recognize as well is that there's a lot of work that needs to go into that, refreshed information, et cetera, doing the rollout to staff, making sure that we can have all the bands all figured out again. There's going to be quite a bit of work that needs to be done before we could roll that out. So those are the type of things we were considering. What can we manage to add in our work plans for this year, and what do we feel would be in items that are very critical? And that's where we went with the bringing forward the option 2. We do think that it's very important to try to move forward with the studies on the Town and Country Centre as a whole, and that'll help to inform as we go into 2018 budget process as well. As far as mitigating costs to the future on our staffing costs are our biggest element in our budgets, and as we get behind on things like COLA and that's not being reflected in the rates and bands that are out there, then typically speaking, then that's going to be an added pressure that's there on future budgets as well. So that's a little bit more background into some of those words. Hope that answers your question.
It does, but I guess the consensus around SLT and the accounting group is that we're comfortable with the way it's sitting right now, and we're adhering to that recommendation. I guess I'll put that back to you. Paul, if you want to respond, sure.
Through your worship, just on the study piece, it's more to what Lucy had talked about. It is work that we think needs to be done. It will be within 2018 budget ask. But unsure if we can make progress ahead of time because we are halfway through the year and have our work plans set. On the staffing side, there's really 2 components in my mind. One is you're setting up a change in your compensation model, which we've talked about with council for some time. And as Lucy said, to actually roll that model out, you need advanced work planning, and I think we're planning right now for the 2018 year for, say, a January 1st rollout, and that would happen. So there's no need, even if council were to approve a change there, we might not be able to implement it anyways. The COLA piece, a little less. I think we proposed 1%, but again, when you start at the beginning of the year, you get the full year budget impact. If you start partway through the year, you're that much behind the 8 ball. Because you would have to, whatever you set today would in theory then have a full year's impact next year. And so you're actually adding that burden next year. So that, I think we're trying to err on the side of fiscal prudence. And we're already partway through the year, and you would see those asks come forward next year. Not to say you couldn't do the COLA, but because it's not as big a number, but that was our thinking.
Okay, thanks for the clarity. Sorry, Councillor Chapman and Councillor Hunter.
Thank you. Through the chair, Lucy, if you could just refresh my memory, what were the savings in staff vacancies? Do you have that number roughly?
1 point. Yeah, it was over $1 million.
Through the chair, Pelkey has a wonderful memory, $980,000.
So $980,000 in staff vacancies that weren't filled. So I would assume that the rest of our staff had to work harder for the people that weren't in those. Personally, myself, I think the COLA should be granted back to the beginning of the year. That staff worked for that in 2016. This is a surplus from 2016. And I would be supportive of supporting that COLA back to January.
Okay, so, and sorry, just to be clear, you're not suggesting the TNC is part of option 2. You're just suggesting that the COLA be reinstated.
I'm suggesting the COLA myself.
Okay.
I'm not opposed to the TNC.
But, sorry, you're not opposed to it, but we can put it, you're okay with putting it off to 2018?
Yes, yeah,
Yep,
for
perfect.
that report, yeah.
Thank you for the clarity. Councillor Hunter.
So, through the chair, again, the cost of living increase beginning of the year, get it done. There's all kinds of good and valid reasons to look after your labor pool. That's pretty basic economics. I guess the challenge that I have is we've bundled two things in there, COLA and Town and Country, not sure why they needed to be tagged in the same option. But when I see advanced critical work, that's a warning to me. So if it's critical, I'd like to know what critical is defined as. So do we have, I know at Town and Country we had some, I believe it was sanitary sewer issues there, that we had some bad plumbing that was aging out and starting to cause all kinds of grief. So the advancing of critical work, could I get an idea as to what that critical work is?
Through the chair, I don't have that information with me right now, but we could actually bring that back next month at our CBC report and just provide additional information on what the intent was with the Town and Country study. I guess I'll just add that, you know, it is a building that we haven't performed a study on for a while, and we have a lot of civic needs to be dealing with, and it's one piece of the puzzle that we don't have additional information on currently.
So Michelle's just going to come forward, Lucy, if that's okay. And thank you, Michelle, whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of Council. With respect to the Town and Country Centre, what we were looking at doing is that the building was built in 1977. It originally housed the library, and over time the library moved out, and between the curling club and the over 50 club, they occupied and renovated that vacated space. And since that time, the community has grown significantly. Currently, both the curling club as well as the over 50 club in particular, they're looking at their space needs. They're looking at what they do and how they do it in the community and how the current Town and Country Centre facility meets their needs. Subsequent to that, we assumed operations for the community halls January 1st, 2016. So you have a number of tenants or occupants in that building trying to figure out how they meet today's current community's needs. The work that needs to be done and that is critical is really about two components. One, it's understanding the existing facility and all of its components and how, on a go forward, you would possibly or potentially look at reconfiguring the space to better meet some of the occupants or different occupants' needs to provide those community uses. So it's about a facility condition assessment based on potential options for that facility and its uses into the future. And it would give council then some information about where they may wish to spend money to invest for the future or not, and just determine that you're going to maintain that box as it exists for the foreseeable next 10 years or longer.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank
So,
you.
through the chair, so I guess the challenge I have is, we own this facility, and the way I'm reading this is that we need to do a study as to what shape the asset's in and what shape we need to bring it forward into the future. Is that right?
The council as the landowner owns the facility. Over time, elements of that facility, the equipment like the ice plant and some of the equipment even in the kitchen, was the responsibility of the tenants. So we need to help that tenant look at the age and condition of that piece of infrastructure as it provides a curling facility. So we need to work with the curling club to have some of that assessed.
Right, so through the chair, I understand that, but so the city owns all the assets regardless of who's using them, correct? So if a tenant's using them, they're still an asset owned by the city, correct?
Correct.
So the question I have then is, in spite of the fact that we've had tenants in there, we're not sure of what shape the assets are in at this point, and we have to spend $80,000 to determine that? Is that what that feasibility study is going to do?
Through the chair, that order of magnitude projected overall cost was for both the facility condition assessment and some community needs assessment or feasibility studying on the whole facility and how it's used, not so much just on the facility condition.
So through the chair, could you speak to what portion would be just an assessment as to what the asset, what it is, what it should be, and how we need to get there? How much of that 80,000 would be?
I don't have that off the top of my head. Through the chair, I can bring that back
Yes,
for
please.
council's consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Lucy. Any other comments, questions? Okay, can I get a motion, please, then, from someone from Council Budget Committee? Councillor Chapman, please.
Your Worship, I'm going to go with option 3. Accept this report for information and instruct staff to make alternative adjustments to 2017 operating budget, being the 1% COLA increase back to January of this year.
We have a comment from Councillor Hunter.
Point of clarification, so although we have 3 alternatives here, we should be able to put our own in, correct? If we wanted to put the COLA in and leave the other piece out, we could certainly have that option.
That's basically what I did with my motion, number 3.
He's amended number 3 to include the
To
COLA.
include the COLA.
Okay, so to clarify, the motion on the floor is to instruct staff to proceed with COLA from beginning of the year?
Beginning of the year, yes, sir.
That's correct.
Perfect.
Okay, any other comments as it relates to the motion? No, there being none, all those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. And from there, I believe we are adjourned because there's nothing for Committee of the Whole. Thank you, Lucy.
Okay, may I just make one
Absolutely,
final
please.
comment is the recommendation of this committee will need to be endorsed at a council level as well, if that.
Absolutely,
is
yep.
that- I just
It'll
wanted to
be
make
coming
sure.
forward. I believe it's on the agenda, so.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent, thank you very much. It's on the consent agenda, is it not? Yeah, we'll bring it up under board reports. Excellent. Thank you very much. We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.